All right, today we're going to unlock a kind of superpower. It's the ability to see into the future of a project. We're diving deep into project time management and breaking down exactly how the pros build these incredible roadmaps that turn massive, complicated goals into on-time realities. So think about it. How do you build a skyscraper or launch a brand new app? These are huge undertakings, right? Thousands of moving parts, yet somehow they often hit their deadlines with insane precision. How? I'll tell you. It's not magic, and it's definitely not luck. They all rely on one single powerful tool. And that tool, it's the project schedule. But listen, don't just picture a calendar with some dates on it. A real project schedule is a strategic roadmap. It defines every single step, it tries to anticipate every challenge, and it charts the entire course from just an idea to a finished product. Okay, so let's get into it. Before you even think about putting tasks on a timeline, you've got to lay down some ground rules. See, building a great schedule always starts with a rock-solid foundation. These right here, these are the principles that stop a schedule from just completely falling apart. You absolutely have to control what's called scope creep, because you can't hit a moving target, right? You need your team to be all in and committed. And, super important, you have to accept that a schedule isn't set in stone. It has to be revised, and it has to be shared openly with everyone to actually work. And of course, you can't schedule any work if you don't know what you're working with. That brings us to these 5 core resources. Do you have the right people with the right skills? The tools they need? Are the materials ordered? Is the budget actually there? Answering these questions first is the key to making any kind of realistic plan. All right, on to the next step. You just can't schedule something like build a skyscraper. It's way too big. The secret is to deconstruct that massive goal into tiny, manageable little pieces. And for that job, there's an official tool, the work breakdown structure, or WBS for short. Its whole purpose in life is to take something that feels completely overwhelming and break it down, layer by layer, until you're left with a crystal clear list of individual tasks. Now here's a little inside secret. The process doesn't actually begin with the work breakdown structure. Nope, it starts one level higher with something called a requirements breakdown structure. As you can see here, you start with the main goal, then you break that into what's required, then the functions you need to make those requirements happen, and so on, all the way down to individual activities. And this is where it all clicks together so beautifully. Those activities we just identified, they become the top-level items in our work breakdown structure. From there, we chop them up even more into the final specific tasks. This system makes sure that every single thing we plan on doing is directly tied back to a core project requirement. Pretty smart, huh? Okay, great, we have our task list. But now for the million-dollar question, how long is each one going to take? This is where the art and science of estimation really come into play. So it's really important to remember this is always an estimation. But we've got some pretty clever techniques to move our estimates away from being just wild guesses and turn them into highly accurate, data-driven predictions. One of the coolest methods is called the Delphi technique. Here's how it works. You ask your team to guess how long a task will take, but they do it anonymously. Then you chart out the results. The people with the really high and really low estimates explain their thinking. And then everyone guesses again. As you can see from these passes, the estimates start to zero in on a much more realistic consensus. Another really popular one is the 3-point method. What I love about this is that it just accepts that, hey, things can go wrong. For every single task, you come up with 3 numbers, the best case or optimistic time, the worst case or pessimistic time, and then the most likely time. You plug those into the formula here, and you get a weighted average that is way more realistic than just a single guess. Okay, quick recap. We've broken down all the work, and we've estimated how long each piece is going to take. Now for the really satisfying part, putting it all together into a visual plan that actually makes sense of the whole project. And these are the 2 workhorses of project scheduling. On the left, you've got the Gantt chart. It plots all our tasks against a timeline, a calendar. It is perfect for seeing when things are supposed to happen. Now, on the right, that's the network diagram. It shows us the relationships between tasks. It answers that crucial question, what has to be done before this next thing can possibly start? We have now arrived at the analytical heart of project scheduling. We're going to use that network diagram we just saw to uncover the single most important sequence of tasks in the entire project. And that sequence is called the critical path. I want you to think of it like the project's backbone. It is the longest chain of dependent tasks from the very start to the very finish. And the tasks on this path have zero room for error, zero slack. If any one of them is delayed by a single day, the entire project's end date gets pushed back by a day. That's why it's so important.
So how do we actually find this thing? Well, it's a two-step process. Step 1 is called the forward pass. We literally start at the beginning of our network diagram and move forward. For each task, we calculate the absolute earliest it could possibly start and finish based on what came before it. We do this all the way to the end, and that gives us the shortest possible time to complete the whole project.
Step 2 is the backward pass. Now we take that earliest finish date we just figured out, and we work backwards from the end. This time, for each task, we're calculating the absolute latest it can start and finish without messing up the project's final deadline. What we're really doing is figuring out how much wiggle room each task has. And here is where the magic happens. We compare the numbers from our two passes. For any task where the earliest start time is exactly the same as its latest start time, well, that task has zero slack, no float, no wiggle room at all. That is a critical task, and the chain of those tasks, strung together, forms the project's critical path. For a manager, this is a total game changer. It tells them exactly where they need to focus all their attention to keep the project on track. So if you take one thing away from all this, let it be this. A project schedule is not something you make once and then just forget about. It is a living, breathing tool. It's how you communicate the plan, it's how you control the progress, and it's how you adapt when, inevitably, stuff goes wrong. It's a living guide for your project's entire journey. So the next time you're facing a big goal, whether it's at work or just in your own life, ask yourself this question. What are the essential, non-negotiable steps that define my timeline? What is my critical path? Because finding it is the very first step to actually making it happen.